it doesn't feel good to play melee. I don't think that it's a good thing that one class is just bad. Or it's less fun to play or something like that. I don't see any advantage to that, and I think that it's a universal negative. The builder-spender meta that like a lot of classes have is kind of boring. Does it feel good to use your basic abilities? No. So why do they exist? Yeah, it's just stupid.
Hey guys, I've spent the last week theory crafting, testing, and experimenting everything I could think of to make this build better. And by the way, Asmongold is right. Most melee builds don't feel good in this game, and they should probably double the damage resistance to close enemies. Not to mention, stop dropping so many piles of stuff underneath the feet of the enemies. Despite this, I've pushed past tier 80 nightmare dungeons, and that's just where I'm at right now with my current gear. I feel confident giving this to you as the ultimate Stormclaw guide. First off, let's clarify some things. Many of you guys have asked what's better, Earth and Might or Loop and Ferocity? Well, here's your answer. Here, I'm killing the boss 3 times with Earth and Might. I also tested with Hurricane to make sure the ticks from Hurricane didn't affect the results. And here, I'm killing the boss 3 times with Loop and Ferocity. Now let's put the fastest from each keystone passive head to head. Still not convinced? How about the slowest Loop and Ferocity versus the fastest Earth and Might? If you had any build website leading you astray, now you know Loop and Ferocity is the way to go. One more note along a similar vein, if you were questioning whether or not Edge Masters or Overcharged is better, Overcharged is by far the better choice. So what makes this build tick? As you can see here, our Storm Strike is triggered when we use Claw. Because we're wearing the Tempest Roar helmet, Storm Strike is now a werewolf ability. This means we're triggering our Loop and Ferocity keystone passive almost every hit. That means guaranteed crits and 60% more damage. On top of that, because of our Toxic Claws passive, we're also poisoning every enemy hit, which opens up a myriad of other bonuses like Heightened Malice. You'll notice this build has no core skills. That's because our main damage source comes from our basic skills. Yes, you heard me right, basic skills. The Greatstaff of the Crone has an awesome effect that makes it cast Storm Strike every time you attack with Claw. Not only does it cast Storm Strike, it's 50% more effective. In addition, we're getting +9 ranks to Claw. With this in mind, we stack our attack speed and on-hit effects in order to create a chain effect of amazing damage. For our basic skill rotation, we start with Earth and Bulwark. This triggers our Vigilance passive as well as the Barrier from Bulwark. This will prevent us from those nasty one-shots before we get to the group. It'll also keep us from getting CC'd on our way. As we approach the enemy, we use Hurricane in order to increase our damage reduction. I use Debilitating Roar to take the heat off me when things get tough. Typically, I would use my ultimate right after I use my Earth and Bulwark. The ultimate should always come back around the same time that it ends, so you don't have to worry too much about when you use it. Just make sure you use your Earth and Bulwark to fill in the gaps between your ultimate. For the gear, let's start with what is required. You absolutely have to have the Greatstaff of the Crone. You should also have Tempest Roar. The helmet's not required in order to start feeling the power, but it definitely brings the build together. For your chest piece, you should focus on as many damage reduction stats as possible, as well as maximum life. Armor is also a good choice. We should also use a defensive aspect, like Aspect of Might. You can use Mad Wolf's Glee, but the lack of survivability in higher nightmare dungeons is difficult. For your gloves, since we don't have any core skills, we can focus completely on stats that boost our DPS. Lucky hit chance, attack speed, critical strike chance, and critical strike damage are all very good. For our aspect, we're using Overcharged. Most of the time, you can find a better version of this in the codex. For our pants, similar to the chest, we're focusing on damage reduction, max life, or total armor. This is another location for a defensive aspect, like Disobedience. You can use Temerity pants if you have them, but you'll want to replace them with something with good damage reduction later. For our boots, we want total armor while werewolf, move speed, dodge, and all stats. For our aspect, we're using Aspect of the Dark Howl. For our amulet, we want cooldown reduction, total armor, move speed, any good damage reduction, or plus ranks to skills that benefit us greatly. On the amulet, we want rapid aspect so that we get that 50% bonus to the attack speed. It seems like the Melted Heart of Seelig will be a better choice for us later, but we won't know until somebody's actually able to get it. On our rings, the most important stats are vulnerable damage, lucky hit chance, critical damage, max health, and critical strike chance. For the aspects, we want Aspect of the Rampaging Werebeast and Direwolf's Aspect. For our gems, we want Sapphire in our armor, Topaz in our weapon, and Skulls in our accessories. For our spirit boons, we want Wariness, Swooping Attacks, Calamity, Calm Before the Storm, and Masochistic. If you don't need the survivability, replace Masochistic with Overload. For our skill tree, we're maxing out Claw and Storm Strike, and we're grabbing 2 additional points in both. Under our core skills, we're only grabbing Predatory Instinct for the extra critical strike chance. For our defensive skills, we're taking Earthen Bulwark and 2 additional points, Blood Howl and 2 additional points, and Debilitating Roar and 1 additional point. We'll also want to grab 3 points of Vigilance. We're completely skipping our companion tree. And for our Wrath skills, we're taking Hurricane and 2 additional points. We're maxing out all 3 passives here. We're taking 1 point in each of these passives and maxing Envenom out. For our ultimate, we take Grizzly Rage as well as the 2 additional points, 3 points in Defiance, and then for our Keystone passive, we're taking Lupin Ferocity. For our Paragon boards, we're starting by going left and getting Tenacity, then moving up and grabbing our Glyph spot. We'll be putting Werewolf here, and then going back down and grabbing Prime. Back above our Glyph, we're getting Impel and Resolve. As we move up, we'll choose Thunderstruck as our first board. We'll go to the right and grab Hubris, up and grab our Glyph. Here we'll be socketing Fang and Claw. From here we'll go up and left and grab Deluge, up and left more and grab our Legendary node, up and left even more, and we'll grab Tempest. If you don't already know, critical strike damage and vulnerable damage scale really well, so make sure you grab any critical strike damage or vulnerable damage that you find. Back down by our Glyph, we'll be heading right and grabbing Stormclaw, then up and right in order to unlock our next board. For our next board, we're taking Inner Beast. We don't actually grab the Legendary node, but instead our first node will be Nimble, as well as Slayer, then Shapeshifter, and our Glyph. For this Glyph, we're taking Territorial. After that, we'll move right, and we'll grab Determination, up and right, and get Tenacity, up and get Havoc, and then back down and to the right, we'll get our next board. We're grabbing Heightened Malice, Poison Resilience, and then heading down and grabbing Poison Condition, and we'll move right and grab our Glyph. For this Glyph, we'll take Exploit, but you should be using Exploit in an earlier board until you're able to place this here. To the right, we'll grab Natureborn, and down we'll grab Sinking Fangs. Next, we'll head down to our final board, which is Lust for Carnage. On this board, we're going to grab Wild's Call, and then we'll go down and get Regenerative. And finally, after Regenerative, we'll grab our last Glyph socket, and we'll put Undaunted here. Don't be afraid to adjust your points around a little bit in order to make sure you hit all of your bonuses. Here's an example of how to do that. Pull 1 point out, then place the point into the stat you need, and remove the one you don't. Then you can replace the point you took out initially. Do this anywhere you need to on your board in order to make sure you hit all of your bonuses. Some final thoughts on the build. Currently, until there's some balance changes, certain druid builds, like Tornado and Lightning Storm, are safer options for pushing high tier content. This is, however, the best melee build you can get as a druid. I'll continue to keep my eyes out for any possible improvements, and let you guys know in my Discord as soon as I find them. I'm also going to create an updated video anytime there are balance changes. I'm Screamheart, but you can call me Daddy Druid if you want. I've been busting my butt to try and make quality content for you guys, as well as awesome builds, and I appreciate all of the support I've gotten so far. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit the subscribe button, and head on over to my Twitch.